And these motherfuckers get mad because I know that my people are not African, okay? I know that all my people do not come from Africa, okay? That there were indigenous black people in America that been here for millions of years, long before Asians arrived, long before the Gaelic and Irish or whatever. But thing is, when Irish and all them came, we could coexist together, okay? And they knew about purging the parasites out of their intestines, okay, by using tobacco leaves. Tobacco leaves was used as a tea. Tobacco leaves was used for teas to purge out the parasites. Also, cannabis bud was eaten, okay? It was consumed to purge parasites out of your intestines. Mainstream medicine do not want people purging parasites out of their intestines, out of their bloodstream, so they can extend their lives, okay? We should be detoxing and purging parasites out regularly. If you're eating meat, that's what you should do at least once or twice a year. But people are not taught this, okay? All right? Even if you don't eat meat, how toxic this environment is, you should at least parasite cleanse once a year also, because, you know, it's in our waters. The fucking environment is toxic. Back in those days, we had natural spring water. The water was clear. In some places, the water was blue, highly alkaline. The soil wasn't as tainted and, you know, poisoned as it is today, because we allow these people to spray stuff in the air, and then we allow them to spray stuff on our vegetation, okay, that they claim will keep, you know, insects and animals away from our crop, which we really don't need these poisons on our crops, because these poisons fuck with us too, okay, astrazine and all that. But nobody really care. Nobody really care. Everybody has the IQ and the attention span of a fucking squirrel, okay? And then if you don't align with their thoughts or agree with them, oh, you're the dummy, okay? Oh, you sound like a Republican, you sound like Candace Owens and blah, blah, blah. These are the insults that these low IQ niggas hurl at me all day, okay? Just because they don't want to accept the fact that these motherfuckers, okay, the ruling class, have been deceiving us and then split us apart, you know, by skin color, okay? You have to parasite cleanse to be able to see those of you who are you, okay? The parasitic races are soulless, okay? And you can see right through them once you have your third eye open, okay? You can see what is real and what is not. And these parasitic people also like anal stuff, butt stuff, because they have their makeup is very inverted, okay? They are the backwards people. They look like us, but they are not us, okay? In more videos, I will explain our genetic makeup and our purpose here as, you know, beings of light, humans or whatever, okay? And where they come from and what they are and what they represent. But that is a whole another video for another day. It's very deep. And some people just will not get it. But yeah, they've got to split up with skin color, okay? And they, but some of us are connected through the mitochondria, okay, and our cells, okay? Our ancient DNA and blood type pretty much connects us over here. And, you know, a soul being can actually exist in any, you know, body at this point, okay? But the beings that come across, they were not just, you know, pale. There were brown people that came across, and they are all, they're all in agreement to deceive us, those of us who come from here, okay? The indigenous, the ancient ones who come from here, okay? And then, you know, there's a lot of things in our history that are not being taught right. So, yeah. There were pale people that were already here coexisting before the last races, okay, that came to split us all up. So everything, yes, get confusing, but you have to accept the fact that the history that we've been taught in school is a lie, okay? We gotta stop pointing the gun at each other. We got to point the gun at the elites, okay? They are the ones that are destroying us, poisoning us, okay? And we got to get them, okay? Us little people have nothing to do with what's going on in society. And, we have to stop pointing the blame at each other, like especially us indigenous ones who are of low income. We have no power. We have never had any power. Yes, the feminists did a lot of things, but it was the feminist JHEWs, okay? And yes, I misspelled the word for a reason because I don't want this to be struck down. It was always the people that were in power that were able to change things, but it's the low-income blacks that are just mindlessly arguing with each other. It's male versus female, all that, light skin versus dark skin, all that crap is going on. Okay, and that really should not be going on. Okay, if you always been Po and come from that, you should know that you're not a part of the parasitic races. Okay, there have been blacks that always been so-called rich since the 1700s, and they come from that parasitic J race. Okay, that come from the other side of the world. Okay.
Here we're going to have a look at the races of America before colonization. It seems clear that America was already quite diverse before the first settlers, or should we call them the last settlers, as this would make far more sense. There are many old stories and depictions of a variety of different tribes, kingdoms and nomads in America. The term copper-colored was often used by the first Europeans when describing the American race in general. They have copper-colored skin, black hair, dark eyes, thick lips, and broad noses. Here we have an Italian explorer in 1524, long before the slave trade, who talks about the complexion of the native Carolina Indians being black, not that much different to Ethiopians. The people of Hawaii were also known as copper-colored, and we are told they originally came from the Polynesian Islands over 1200 years ago. If this is true, it does seem rather odd that they would come all that way over the Pacific Ocean just to stop at Hawaii, never to discover the mainland of America. Here we have some of the royal family members of Hawaii before the kingdom was overthrown in a coup d'etat which took place in 1893. In 1521, Spanish explorer Francisco Gordillo encountered a tribe living near the Shikora people in Georgia and South Carolina, called the Duher tribe. They were very different to the other natives. They were pale, had red or brown long hair, freckles, grey and blue eyes, and were noticeably larger than the other natives. Most of the men had mustaches, and the high leaders had beards. They were governed by a chief named Datta, who was of gigantic size. In place of horses, the king was carried on the shoulders of strong young men. He was also decorated with brightly coloured paint or tattoos. The chief and his wife lived in a large stone palace. More documentation states that when another Spanish explorer named Lucas Vasquez de Ayllon landed in modern-day South Carolina in 1526, he found the Duher tribe in possession of some form of pyrotechnic devices, which included some type of sparklers and rockets. He also observed that the people divided their year into 12 moons. Researchers believe that these people may have been of Irish origin. In Gaelic dictionaries, the word Duher means place of the Irish. The word Datta is a medieval Irish Gaelic word that means painted. The Vikings, who are now known to have explored North America long before Christopher Columbus, described the Irish as able seamen who travelled extensively. The Vikings also claimed the Irish occupied an area south of Chesapeake Bay. The Shawano Indians also recognized a white tribe in Florida who were said to have iron tools. Petroglyphs found in the area were carved in Ogham, an Irish script used from the 6th to 8th century. In 2006, people of One Fire, a team of Native American scholars, began a comprehensive research program on the Duher tribe. The words associated with the province of Duher defied translation until 2011. A check with Gaelic dictionaries, however, quickly found translations for many of the words. In North America, there were many different native tribes, some of darker skin tones to others. According to the Transatlantic Slave Trade Database, 12.5 million Africans were shipped to the New World. 10.7 million survived the dreaded passage, disembarking in North America, the Caribbean and South America. About 600,000 slaves were transported to the United States directly, or less than 6% of the 10.7 million. If you take a look at the Olmec civilization, it's quite clear who was already in the Americas long before European explorers. The first Olmec head was discovered by archaeologist Matthew Stirling in 1938. 16 other heads were also found. The heads' features are not consistent with any of the pre-Hispanic races of the continent that we are told about. Another interesting place is Norumbega, which is a legendary settlement in northeastern America, which was featured on many early maps. It was alleged that the houses had pillars of gold and the inhabitants carried quarts of pearls on their heads. Gaspar Cortereal was a Portuguese explorer, participating in various exploratory voyages, sponsored by the Portuguese crown. These voyages are said to have been some of the first to reach North America. He drew this map in 1472. An 11th century Viking named Leif Erikson established a city which is now in modern-day Boston. In the 16th century, not long after the European discovery of the Americas, Norumbega began to disappear off maps, being replaced with New England. The story of David Ingram, a shipwrecked English sailor who was said to have come across Norumbega, stating he saw kings decorated with rubies, 6 inches long, and they were borne on chairs of silver and crystal, adorned with precious stones. He saw pearls as common as pebbles, and the natives were laden down by their ornaments of gold and silver. The city of Bega was 3/4 of a mile long and had many streets wider than those of London. In the 1870s, a committee of Boston formed to back the erection of a statue of Leif Erikson, the famous Norse explorer. It was erected in 1887 and remains there to this day. The amphitheatre was one of the Norse sites marked on this map, just above the second W in Watertown. Here is an old photograph of the amphitheatre. Another site in Watertown that gets much controversy is the local dam. It was discovered by Roger Clapp in 1630, already built and concealed under the fall of fresh water. Clapp said the dam was the work of people who had come and gone long before the earliest English settlers. If you search for when the dam was built, we are told in the year 1900. In some local names and landmarks is preserved the idea that not only was Norumbega a real place, it was inhabited by people who sailed across the Atlantic some 1,000 years ago. Chief Tuscaloosa was the head chief in Mississippi. It was said he could not ride a horse because his feet would not touch the ground. Contemporary records describe the paramount chief as being very tall and well built with a dark complexion. Some of the chroniclers say Tuscaloosa stood 1.5 feet taller than the Spaniards. His name is derived from the Muskogean language, which means black warrior. There was also a few other kingdoms portrayed on early maps on the west coast, one of them called Annian Regnum, and another called Quivira Regnum. Regnum, which is Latin for kingdom. I do find it interesting that the Wild West, as it was known, was the last area to be settled in America. Maybe some of these kingdoms held on to their power right up to the bitter end. There are many old maps and references to these kingdoms and American Tartary. Many texts often talk about their riches, but believe they were savages due to not being Christians. In the early 1600s, we have documents and depictions of kings in America. Le Roi de, which is from Old French meaning the king of, as we can see here, the king of Florida. In this one, we have the king of Albion. It states here, this kingdom is named for being discovered by the English. It is located in America, in the western part of Mexico. The king and his subjects believe in the immortality of the soul. It seems the transatlantic slave trade was not what we were told. It was a tool used to steal land and claim it for their own. If the native Indian Americans were the only people of the land, then you would not have to recognize the other tribes or kingdoms, as they couldn't be seen as native anymore because of the slave trade. There is so much hatred and division going on in America over race. If only people knew how rich and diverse their past already was.